Hey, how's it going everyone? Here today with the Super Saiyan Son Goku Legendary Super Saiyan. Now this figure has been highly anticipated, super hyped in the community until the final moment when someone overseas was posting some photos, and man, did that chest stick out. But actually it's not. Okay, I will jump into the details for that a little bit later. But to start off with, it is really a non-issue. I did do a write-up on Discord, and I also posted it on Insta. So if you follow me there, or if you're in the Discord channel, I'm sure you would have already seen it, and you already kind of know that it's not really a issue. Though obviously it is a situation-based type thing. So maybe depending on what you plan to do, it may stick out a bit more than other times. But for the general user who just wants to enjoy a figure, check on the shelf, pose and have a good play for themselves, it's a non-issue in my opinion. But anyway, enough of that, let's just enjoy the figure for now. Straight off we have the usual retail release packaging, white box, pose of Goku there, powering up. And yeah, as I mentioned, this is a retail release, I think in every country actually, which is quite nice. Now on the back we have a selection of images showcasing the figure and the accessories, that Kamehameha, the hair going up when he's kind of powering up, which is really cool. Now the great thing about this figure, if you are unaware, if you're maybe new to the line, this one has all newly designed articulation, and it is basically takes the normal figure from here to the extreme levels, which is awesome. Obviously some downsides to that. Obviously more articulation, more gaps and so forth, but overall it is a really nice trade-off, especially with a figure like this where you want to get him in dynamic poses. But anyway, let's pop him out of the box here and we can check out the contents for what he does come with. Okay, so Goku in the center, we have the additional hair and with the windswept hair, maybe windswept, at least the flowing straight up here when he's powering up. And then we have another bang piece with the single bang looping around, which is nice. So you do have some options there, which is cool. And then for face weights, we kind of have a neutral, slightly upset look on him already. Teeth gritting, full on mouth open, shouting Kamehameha, blasting away Frieza. Hope we get soon actually. But anyway, he also does come with a cocky smile, which is cool because I think this is one of the first times we really do see Goku cocky in the series. Going Super Saiyan, he's definitely overpowering Frieza at that point, which is really cool to see. Now for hands, we do have lots of hands here, which will be handy for your poses, pun intended. But the hands open one, martial arts grips, different ones for doing Kamehameha, and some more, I guess it's spread finger out opposed to slightly curved in. So we kind of have all range of motion for the hands there, which is good, so you can kind of mix and match how you see fit for the pose that you're going for at the time. He does also come with a blue Kamehameha, which is really nice as well. I'm guessing a couple of these hands actually do have a peg for that. Yes. Okay, so the two at the bottom have the peg for the Kamehameha, so you can pose them holding onto it or without having that peg mode, which is nice. But anyway, let's pop it out of the packaging, check them on the turntable, and we can take a look at the actual finish for the figure. So as Goku swings around, we can check out the lovely orange and yellow tones on the pants there. This is definitely a nice mix. It does, pair well with the aura effects from Time Nations, the yellow one, which I do have. It's stuck in the display at the moment, so I can't quite get it out. But something like that would pair well to showcase, Goku powering up with all the energy flowing around him. The boots have a nice dark blue with a dark red and the yellow trim all the way around it as well. And then again, the same kind of blue can be seen for the belt or the inner clothing, as well as his wrist guards. The hair is, it's a bit of a weird mix for me. It's kind of in between the full power Goku and maybe the original Awakening Goku, because we have a more softer yellow, but we have a darker weathering and tones in there as well. So you do get a bit of depth and detail, especially when you combine it with the sculpted lines in the hair. Now at this point, I'm wondering if you've noticed anything in the chest or the arms, if you've noticed any difference on camera. If you haven't, awesome, drop that comment. If you have, yeah, maybe drop a comment as well. Now I'll highlight the part that people have been worried about. Now the chest part right here is different plastic to everything around it. All the other parts are a softer plastic, whereas this one is the hard shell, I guess, for his torso, giving it the the required rigidity that he needs. Now, because it is a different plastic, it does reflect or interact with light slightly differently. I think this is actually PVC and this is ABS. I always mix up which one is which. But essentially, if you've been following the line, or if you're on Insta or anything like that, you've probably seen a couple of people overseas who posted photos where the chest looks really bright. Now, in person, you don't actually notice that. Under certain light, you can, but general use, I will say you don't notice it. I even tested this. I gave this figure to my wife. I said, "Do you notice anything? Have a look." And I said, "Is there anything weird?" And she was like, "Oh, the joints maybe." And and it wasn't until I pointed out the chest that she, "Oh, yeah, I guess if I kind of look and focus in a different way, you can notice a subtle difference in color." Now that is only due to the different plastic type. But one thing I have found, phone photos makes it stick out drastically different. I think it's because when you take a photo of your phone, it's automatically applying a beautify filter, or bumping up the colors, adjusting everything to make it look that candy like that iPhone goes for. So there's subtle difference in, I guess, the tone from the chest and the other parts that tries to balance it, and what happens is this ends up coming through a lot brighter, the other parts a bit darker. So in the photo it stands out a lot more than what it actually does in person. So I think this is definitely a really good lesson or takeaway, is that phone photos especially, in this day and age, it does not really match up with reality. I mean, we've had this all along with, like the original Instagram, was it influencers, showcasing a life which they don't really live through filters and stuff like that. So it's something very similar. If you have other figures where you sometimes notice that the knees are a subtly different tone, again that is just down to a different plastic. And I think it was Turles that was quite noticeable. I don't even think this is anywhere near that level personally. It may be slightly different from figure to figure, it could be, where some are a bit more noticeable than others, but I've looked at a lot of these Goku figures, and then even at Tamashii Nations on the weekend, so I've seen a lot of these ones in person, and I up until now haven't really noticed at all. So I don't think it's anything to worry about. Get it in hand, enjoy it, and just take the figure in for what it is, which is awesome articulation, and it's a badass Goku figure. So yeah, hopefully that covers any concerns that you might have had about the chest. And one more point I want to add on. You basically have two types of lighting: warm light and cool light. Warm light is more orange tone, a bit more like your natural daylight outside, with a bit more towards the sunset. Then you have your cool light, which is blue. So this is like really sterile. Imagine like hospital, dentist. So it's kind of uninviting colours. I found that the colour difference is more noticeable underneath that type of lighting. So if you're having a look in maybe a shop, a fluorescent light where it has like really bright blue lights, or office type space, it may be a bit more noticeable, opposed to at home where you normally have slightly warmer lights. So yeah, hopefully that will alleviate all the concerns, and we can now just jump straight into the articulation, which is what this figure really shines at. Okay, so with the articulation, left and right is really nice. Going back is surprisingly quite good. Going forward is definitely more limited due to the faceplate. I'll just pop the head off there. Let me pop that back on again. There we go. So going forward is okay, but we'll start to push the faceplate off. So looking down, not a strong point, but definitely looking up and then to the left and the right is really good. Okay, and then put this head back on. Okay, there we go. So the head is interchangeable, so it is definitely a bit easier to change than other figures, which is nice to see. Whereas sometimes with the figures, they are crazy hard to pop the head on and off. But yeah, anyway, jumping back into the articulation, we can see the chest area here, which has the awesome in-depth cut around the top here. On the back as well, we have a subtle curve, but it's all molded in with the design from the muscles, which is really cool. So that allows the butterfly joint here to have a nice range of motion. And everything feels so good. One thing that you will notice is the joint on the top. Now this one does stick out a lot more than other figures, and that is one thing that my wife noticed straight away with this figure, especially compared to the other Dragonball ones. But the reason for this is to give him a natural range of motion. So you can actually lift his arm up and then swivel all the way up and around in a very natural range of motion, which I think is a first for the Dragonball line. Now the reason why this is actually quite important is it definitely allows you to get natural poses, and it can really help with getting that Kamehameha pose in, with the arms coming all the way forward and straight. Whereas before you had to do like a weird like kind of down under bending type of a motion to kind of get it right, and on one angle it would look cool, others would look a bit weird. But with the new Goku here, you can definitely achieve that pose in a natural looking way from multiple angles, which is awesome. Now he does have the usual bicep swivel, which is cool. The elbow joint is pretty reasonable considering those big old muscles he's rocking, which is cool. The wrist peg is very normal, a bit more limited than others due to the way the design is, where it comes out and around, but overall not too bad, and it does fit in with his design. For the ab crunch though, this is really cool. We have a nice curvature design there which will loop around, so you can bend forward and then back. The muscles on the back will hinder it a little bit more, but one thing that is really cool is that this is actually a soft plastic underneath, so you can kind of push it a bit further than what you normally would, and it works and it feels so good as well. But the angle point of articulation is great, and we have some nice motion in the waist as well. Now coming down to the belt and hip, this is on a pivot as well, and it is soft rubber. And then the leg joint as well. One thing that is interesting, the butt flaps, which normally get in the way, these are soft. He's got a nice little squishy tush. So cool. And what that means is you can push it back, a little bit further than what you normally would. Whereas, you know, on the other figures, being this is hard, you hit it and that's it. That's all you can do. But in this one here, you can push it further, which does give it a more natural range of motion, which is really good. We have the upper thigh swivel as well. Feels a little bit more limited compared to some other figures. I think it is because this isn't a perfect circle, and compared to, you know, smaller slender figures from, you know, the newer anime. But we do get the range there, which is nice, and it does feel good. And then going forward, again, really good. And as I mentioned before, you can also go back, which is cool. The knee joint is nice, and again, everything just feels so good. Like, everything is super easy and fluid to move, but it's not loose, right? It's easy to move, but it holds its shape no matter where. Yeah, it's fantastic. Now coming down to the ankles, now this is a slight redesign, I feel, compared to other figures. If you are having trouble having him stand, just make sure you push the foot all the way back so the peg is a bit more on the diagonal. That will allow you to get the foot flat. You can move it forward as well just to get more of an angle, and then you have this swivel as well, and then a very subtle tilt. So not as extreme as the Naruto figures, but definitely an improvement over the older Dragonball ones. So yeah, I think there's a lot going on with this figure compared to recent releases, or, you know, in terms of the upgraded design. We have the shoulder design, we have the inner chest, we have all the soft plastic parts, which will give it a little bit more range and motion and give and take. And, you know, I think the most noticeable one is the back one there, which will allow you to go back. And then again we have the, you know, the slightly different ankles as well. As you know, there's just so many little parts. I'd love to see a list, actually, a full tear down or breakdown of this figure, comparing it to the previous, I guess, you know, what we would normally call a 2.0 figure, to see all the differences that have been made. So overall, very fun figure to play with in terms of articulation. I do want to highlight though, I don't believe this is a beginner friendly figure. Now what I mean by that is, something like Naruto, amazing articulation but very straightforward and simple. So anyone can pick it up and chuck him into a quick ninja pose. Even the previous, like full power Goku, limited articulation, but you know what you're working with. But with this figure, there's so many little points where you can move and twist and adjust that it can be easy to put him into an awkward pose, and to get him into that amazing looking dynamic pose, it does take a bit more work, because it kind of reminds me of a monster arts. You move one joint here, a little twist here, and move, another bend over here, a twist here, lift up this, twivel, twist. You have to move multiple joints to eventually get them into that badass dynamic pose. So that's why I feel like it isn't quite beginner friendly, but it would definitely be fun to play with, regardless of your experience with the Figuarts line. Yeah, the other part is the joints or the gaps, but that's something that's more for the pros and cons at the end of the video, so I'll cover it there. So for now, what we can do, we can switch out the faceplates and check out all the different expressions that he does come with. So the first face that we have is that base neutral one with a subtle frown there. Again, this one's looking really nice. I mean, I don't think there's much to say about faces these days, because the face printing has just gone to that level where, I don't know, as I keep saying just about every video, the last 2 years have definitely improved lots. But yeah, the sculpting and printing of this one is really nice. What I will do though, for the other faces, I'll pop this head off, put on the other one with the hair going up, that way the bangs are not in the way. Now to change your head, all you have to do is lift it up and off, and like every faceplate, the front bangs come off and you can get access to the faceplate. So this is the second faceplate with the mouth open, teeth gritting one, and you can actually see some subtle battle damage on the right there above his eyebrow, which is really good. And again, the face printing, sculpting, everything here is really nice. One thing to point out though, with these faceplates, it's definitely not as noticeable in person, but on the camera I think it does come through a bit more, and that is the subtle seam between the faceplate and the hair. It is definitely more noticeable with this style, where the hair is going straight up, and just like the other one, it will pop off, so you can change the faceplate easily. It's not a huge issue or a big con or anything like that, but it is just something I do want to point out, is that you can, depending on how well you have a faceplate aligned, you can get a bit more of a gap there compared to some other figures. The third faceplate that we do have though is that cocky smile. This one's really good. You can imagine just looking down on Frieza as he's about to smack him around. Definitely really good, and again we get that extra subtle battle damage lines on the forehead, and all the lines there to bring forth the emotion. And then finally we have that full on mouth open, ready to do his Kamehameha attack face. The coloring and the detail for the teeth, the tongue, the sculpting there is really nice, along with the subtle difference in colour from the tongue and the back of, or at least the inner mouth I should say. The eyebrows are definitely curved up and it brings forth that emotion with some extra printing just above in the grooves as well. So yeah, overall the faces on this figure are looking really good, and we do get a nice selection of expressions. I think the addition of that cocky face is definitely really good, and I'm really digging this shouting one. But yeah, definitely drop a comment below for which is your favourite faceplate for this figure. So I switched back to the original head, or at least the hair sculpt, along with that cocky smile, because I do want to show the other bangs that he comes with. So the base one we have, what's that, 1, 2, 3 coming down from his right side with 2 on the left. But we can pop this one off and attach the other one, and now most of the hair is swept up with that single bang coming down. So this one is actually really nice. I'm digging the look of this one here. I can definitely see combining this one here with some dynamic poses, maybe was that jumping or flying through the air, or doing some cool martial arts pose or a kick or a punch towards Frieza with this hair would look really cool. So Goku also does come with the Kamehameha effect, which is a lovely blue colour with some white on one end. and also where it has the peg slot as well. And the I guess the light beams or energy beams coming off from the center. Again, we have the translucent blue color with the white at the starting points as well. So we do get some nice depth and detail on the effect. I believe, looking at this one here, it is the same design as the Super Saiyan 4 Ki Blast effect. Or if not, it's at least very similar with the design for the tips at the end. So overall, nice addition. But yeah, let's check out some poses with the figure, and then we can attach this effect as well, and then we can jump into a size comparison and pros and cons to wrap up the video. So this is a real basic pose. Goku just showcase that head and hair. I love the way that single bang comes around, and I think it definitely suits a pose where he's ready for battle, just getting into that martial arts pose where he's about to jump in and either defend himself or kick Frieza's ass. But one thing I did mention earlier in this video is that I don't think this is a beginner friendly figure for posing. It is more of an advanced figure compared to others due to all the little points of articulation. You know, maybe it's the way the belt, you have to maybe adjust this up and around to flow with the figure. You can move the leg on the upper swivel, get the knee, and then the way your feet moves, so you can like twist and adjust and move everything around, because it does have really good leg range of articulation there from being able to do the splits. So depending how you start off, you may get in a bit of an odd pose, but if you slowly adjust and swivel each individual part, you can start getting into a more natural martial arts pose, or dynamic fighting pose, which is really cool. But definitely I feel like in person like this, I'm not really noticing the difference in skin tones or anything like that, but definitely drop a comment below what you think. Does it stick out more on camera or not? So despite the fact that his joints are super easy to move and articulate and get into the right pose, they can also hold their position really well, and you can actually balance Goku really well just on one leg there. So this is a real quick pose just to demonstrate that. You can swivel all the legs around to get that high kick up, and then you can balance them on the one leg, which is really cool. In this way you can definitely see the nice tonality of the orange to yellow, and then with the skin tones as well, all the way down to the boots. So definitely really fun to pose, and then I think you can definitely get some really cool badass fighting poses with this figure. So before we switch on the actual Kamehameha effect blast, I do want to show off him in this pose here where he's charging up. One thing I have always struggled with in the past is getting this front foot flat on the ground while having the leg out front, but with this one here, due to the extra range of articulation in that ankle, so much easier. So you can get him into the right pose, spread the legs, and get him into the right position where he is balanced with both feet flat on the ground, which is definitely a lot more pleasing on the eyes. Okay, so now check this out. I mean, come on, he's doing Kamehameha. His arms are straight, he has that leg out front and bent down. I mean, this is something that's been really hard to pull off with the previous releases, but everything here is working so nice, and I could even get this pose even better if I spent a lot longer on it and just getting everything in the right angle. Like the arms here, I could probably twist it up and around a little bit, move the hand, bring this up a little bit more. But the main point is the fact that you can get those arms straight out without doing a weird bendy twisty under arm type pose, and then you can get his feet both flat on the ground and hold the pose really well. I personally love mixing the shouting mouth with the hair. It's swept right up, all the energy is coming out, blowing back. I mean, imagine this with some like little dust storm or cloud behind, or some rubble flowing. That would be so cool. But definitely I think this is the highlight for this figure, being able to pull off the Kamehameha pose with just looking so much more natural compared to other releases. And well, speaking of other releases, let's get a bit of a lineup for a comparison. Okay, so we have obviously the new Super Saiyan Goku here. We've got the Awakening, Full Power, Kid Goku, and the original Frieza release. So yeah, a few points I want to touch on first, since I did mention earlier how the hair is kind of similar to the full power Goku. The main difference is though that this one here is a lot more softer. I feel like it's a bit more manga orientated, with that real subtle yellow, which I think is definitely a lot nicer. And then the comparison with the Awakening one was more of that orange, coming through a little bit more. The full power one kind of does, but not really. So I feel like it is kind of like an in-between of the two. Though I guess personally I prefer if it leaned more towards the Awakening one with the stronger highlights. We can't have a Goku lineup without obviously a Dragon Ball Goku. I do love that event exclusive one with the blue gi, really nice. But then we also had Frieza here, which is the first, actually the first Frieza, which was really nice. And has a nice weathering, colouring and details on there, which is a little bit more similar to the Goku that we got. Version 1 has older figures that had all the body weathering, which I feel is the one main point which the new one is lacking. But again, that's not really something that we get on figures these days, I think just due to the extra cost that it adds on. So speaking of cost though, if you really want the weathering, I think you're going to have to fork out more money. So on the surveys where they put in the price point for how much you're looking to pay, I think you need to be sitting in that higher bracket, so we can hopefully get more of that weathering coming through. Though I can definitely see this guy getting a event exclusive treatment eventually, and we generally do get weathering for that, so maybe in the future we will get that. And oh, my bad, I was rocking the table a little bit too much then. But yeah, what we can do, I'll switch up the pose and we can check out the height difference. Okay, so standing up we can definitely see that the new Goku is ever so subtly shorter than the others. He definitely has that more bulked up look, and I think I'm actually okay with that, because for me I don't really consider every figure the same, right? To me this is the Namek Goku. He's going to be paired up with a full power Frieza, who hopefully we will get an announcement for, so that is okay for me. But I can definitely see why some people may be a bit concerned with the size difference from different arcs. But looking at this, I mean, it's not a huge difference either. Now I do have his legs spread out a little bit more, so if we close up these a little bit, he will go up a little bit higher, and now he is basically the same as the other Gokus. So overall not a huge difference, but obviously this is a lot more bulkier, and the heads do look a bit bigger. It kind of reminds me of the difference between the old Trunks and the new Trunks, where the newer body styles, I guess to fit in the extra articulation or the new upgraded parts, they do get a bit bigger. But I feel like compared to Frieza, looking really cool, and definitely looking forward to getting a slightly bigger, beefier, chunky full power Frieza eventually. Now if you're wondering if the new head fits on the old body, I mean kind of. You need to use some blue tack because the pegs are a different size, but I can definitely see how it could work, though I feel the head does look a bit too big for the body. So yeah, that brings us almost to the end, but we can close up with the pros and cons. So straight away with the pros, all the soft parts like the soft tush, the inner torso being softer plastic, the belt, I love that. It gives it a little bit more of a nicer feel and a little bit more give and take when posing. The overall proportions, I'm loving the biggy bulky look, especially for the shirtless battle damage version. The colouring on the pants is awesome. I love that darker to lighter yellow. I think that could be a bit of a personal preference for some people. Some people do prefer just the straight one single colour look, but at least for me I kind of prefer the nice mix and match. The faceplates are really nice, solid printing there, the expressions, the cocky look, the neutral look, the normal Kamehameha one as well, which is awesome. And to pair with those hands, and to pair for those faces, we have lots of hands, base ones for Kamehameha, ones with a peg for holding on to the effect, which is really nice. The normal base, fist one, the martial arts grip, and a nice other selection of variety ones. One where he's doing his big key blast down to Frieza as well. We get the different hair pieces. We've got the single bang, multiple bangs, and then the hair swept up look as well, which is awesome. So nice variety. I think that's very key to this figure. Articulation and variety is awesome. The muscle sculpting looks really cool. Price point 7,100-ish yen. It's a bit more up there for the retail releases, but it's pretty standard for ones that come with accessories. And I feel like it is a pretty decent price point for what we are getting. Now for the cons, I have a few cons. There's nothing that's a make or break for this figure though. I guess the first con, since a lot of people may mention it, at least for me it's not a con, but I do want to highlight different plastic will react to light differently. So depending on where you're looking at it, depending how you plan to use it, the color tones may be an issue for you. For me it's not a con, but I do want to highlight that for some people at least. But the con for me though is we get a lot more gaps on this figure. We can see one under the leg here. We'll get some around the chest, on the inner legs as well. Now for the most part, I don't feel like this is a huge con. It is the trade-off for articulation to aesthetic look. But for example, the inner leg here, I feel like maybe they could have made that a little bit longer and tapered in to be a bit more smoother, a bit more well-rounded. So there's a small few points on that which I think could have been just slightly further refined to be a bit nicer. The shoulder ones are really hard to deal with though, but you do get a really big joint on the top, which depending on the angle isn't a problem at all, and other times it kind of sticks out. It's definitely nowhere near as bad as the original Freezer release with the purple to the white, but it does stick out a little bit depending on what pose you have. Again, these aren't big cons, but maybe it's something that I would like to see further refined for future releases. You know, maybe a little bit of weaving could have been really nice for the upper body. It has it in the pants, a little bit over here, but the chest is just pretty much basic. So some weaving on there, something similar to the Awakening Goku, I think really could have elevated this figure even further. Of course, it would have come with the drawback of an increased price. So all things considered, definitely love this figure. I'm really torn if it's the figure of the year for the Dragon Ball line. I'm still leaning towards maybe one of the Freezers, but definitely have to wait until I get Metal Cooler next month. Now we'll be taking some photos of this figure and checking on Insta later, so keep an eye out for those, and definitely drop a comment below for what you think about this release so far. Are you still pumped for it? Have you ordered? Have you passed? Or you know, anything along those lines, definitely let me know below. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please do like, subscribe, and check out other videos. If you haven't seen already, I have heaps of shorts from Tamashii Nations 2023 showcasing all the different displays, as well as a full event walkthrough. That one's a bit longer, so grab yourself a drink, a snack, and sit back and relax for about 40 minutes while we check out the whole event. If you weren't there in person, I do recommend checking it out. There's lots to see there, and I think lots to look forward to next year. Yeah, but anyway, that is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, cheers!